Okay, so we're going to kind of go over what art is really in a nutshell with this lecture. Sorry, my dog is kind of barking in the background here. Um, so art typically refers to, it doesn't just have to be visual art, music, dance, theater, literature, visual arts. Um, those are all under the umbrella of what art is. So the visual arts include drawing, painting, sculpture, film, architecture, design. There might be even some more in there that we're not listing, but all art really comes from the need to be expressive, um, and humans tend to need to express things. They want to, they want to express their feelings, insights, or experiences, and art can really express things that go beyond just being what you can express verbally. You actually get to use your other sense, which is your sight. So you can use color, form, line, um, shape, those kinds of things. So we're really going to be focusing obviously on visual art with this class. So drawing, painting, sculpture, film, architecture, and design are what we're going to be really focusing on. And a work of art is the visual expression of an idea or an experience, and it's formed with skill typically through the use of a medium. So we're going to talk about what a medium is too. It's a particular material along with its accompanying technique, and you can also call it a media. Media is the plural. So say I make something, a piece of art out of Sharpie and paper, such as this. I did a little doodle here earlier. So this is Sharpie is the media on paper. So that would be considered the media that I used. Sharpie is a medium and the paper is a medium. So if you use paint, that would be a medium. If you used, sculpture using bronze, bronze would be the media that was used in that piece. And it's also the accompanying technique. So, if you have a bronze sculpture, it would be, possibly hollow casting technique, that kind of thing. So harkening back to Her Secret is Patience by Janet Eichelman, she sought to create a work that would say something about the Phoenix, Arizona area that harmonized with nature. So she chose that flexible netting, which is the media, and she used that because it would move in the wind in a natural way. And she really is trying to symbolize and harken back and bring in that symbolization of nature into that. So, she similarly chose the size, scale, shape, and color of the work to express her message of, nature and the patience of nature. And the fact that it did sway in the wind like that is, the wind is a natural element that is moving this piece. So she really is using the medium of the piece to back up her her meaning and behind the piece. So really, media can be chosen, such as the netting, which would have made it flexible in the wind. That medium was chosen for a reason, and typically artists try to choose their media very carefully to help back up the expression of the piece. Moving on from what media is, here we go. So chosen by the artist to enforce the function of the work. So like I said, her use of flexible netting that responds to the wind. And mixed media describes art created with a combination of materials. And she did use a combination of materials in that particular piece, but and it's very common for artists to use more than one material in a piece. So moving on, we're going to talk about creativity a little bit. What is creativity? And it's the ability to bring forth something new that has value. It has relevance. It's a new way of thinking. And it's an important skill that's really highly desirable in many different areas of our lives. But in this class, we're mostly talking about artistic creativity. But there's other forms of creativity, right? And it has the potential to influence future thought or action. So if we take a look at this piece, by Robin Road. It's called He Got Game. It's from 2000. It's 12 colored photographs kind of put together in this kind of interesting way. Um, and he drew this basketball hoop on the asphalt and then kind of photographed himself lying down in different positions as if he's kind of flipping through the air, performing this impossible slam dunk. So it ends up ending up here with this slam dunk. And, you can see the progression here of him twirling, and there's even little lines over here coming off of him, showing that he's moving in movement. But so like this is kind of like harkening back to like slow motion or stop motion photography in that it has, these steps going through it like a stop motion piece. And the artist is using chalk and drawing with that on the street. And it kind of goes along with the fact that he is dressed kind of like an early LL Cool J. And it really does kind of have this piece that kind of harkens back to the celebration of street culture. So he's using his media, such as the chalk and the actual asphalt street, to kind of harken back to street culture. And even the name of the piece, He Got Game, kind of goes back to that. And it's really a pretty creative piece. I've never thought to do something like this myself, to do kind of a series of photographs that kind of goes together in this way. And I never actually have seen anything quite like it. So it is a creative piece, and he is using the media of the street and the chalk in a way to kind of bring symbolism into the piece, because he really is from an urban environment, and he's harkening back to that with the choice of media that he's using in this piece. So trained and untrained artists, we can talk about these a little bit. We all have the potential to be creative, and while training is helpful in the visual arts, it's not always necessary. The urge to create is kind of a universal feeling, and it has little to do with actual training. Trained artists have received some sort of instruction in the field of art, basically, while untrained artists have received little to no training, but they create anyway. And a lot of the untrained artists are super interesting. So untrained artists also include outsider artists and folk artists. So we'll kind of go into what outsider art is and what folk art is as well here. So this is a piece by the Philadelphia Wiremen. It's called Untitled, or Watch Face, from 1970. It's basically a mix of media. So we're talking about media again here, mixed media. So basically bottle cap, nails, paper, wire. This thing is only 7 inches long and about 2.5 inches wide. And we do have other examples of his work, because it's kind of interesting to see his work as a collection. Because if you just look at one at a time, you don't get the same effect as if you can see multiples of his work. So they're actually better as a set instead of looking at singular creations. And that's just as well because there are more than 1,000 of these sculptures. And they're quite obsessive and disciplined in design. The wire typically firmly binds a collage of found objects, including plastic bags. Sorry, I've got to delete that. Glass, food packaging, all sorts of different found materials that he found on probably the street, honestly. It's really quite ironic that they're made out of trash. And they were also discovered in the trash in a rundown Philadelphia neighborhood in the early 1970s. So kind of ironic that they're made from trash. They were discovered in the trash. And the person that made this, they think that it's a man. They call him the Philadelphia Wireman, because the gauge of some of the wire is quite thick, and they think that it would have taken a lot of strength. But no one really knows who made these pieces. They do look rather masculine, which is also another thing as to, well, it's probably a man that made this. But no one knows exactly what they mean, because we don't know the artist. They were found in the garbage. So some, critics compared these sculptures to, different classical antiquity sculptures, but nobody knows what they mean. One thing is for certain, this collection has become regarded as an important discovery in the field of outsider art. So this is considered an outsider artist. He has very little training. He's untrained. And so, you might wonder what these sculptures mean. You can even take a little time and think about, come up with some ideas on what you think they might mean. To me, for some reason, I think that they're kind of sad. Do I have extra? Okay. They're kind of bundled up like little babies, but inside is someone's trash, and it's wrapped up in this wire. And it's like the artist takes someone's trash and they're holding it really dearly. They're treating it in a way where they're turning trash into treasure. And so the artist really took the time to wrap it up carefully, compose these things, and he has thousands of them that he made. So he has a lot of time on his hands, more than likely. And he might have been a lonely person for some reason. To me, that's kind of what I am thinking. I'm just showing you examples of, when you're interpreting a piece, if you think about it, you can come up with some interesting insights. And also it kind of makes me think that maybe this person might have been a hoarder, because it's taking that trash and hoarding all these pieces, thousands of pieces, and all the trash that they're trying to turn into a project, basically. It kind of reminds me of a hoarder. And the sheer quantity of the sculptures, like I said, is kind of like a form of hoarding. So are these sculptures almost better because we don't know who made them? In my opinion, yes. And we don't know what they mean, which is in stark contrast to Janet Eichelman's piece, because before, when we didn't know what it meant, it was hard to appreciate it, and then when we learned more about it, we appreciated it more. With these pieces, we don't know what they mean, and it's almost better that way because it leaves it open to such interpretation. So the mystery behind these pieces is really what's so fascinating. So it really is different than Janet Eichelman's piece, which was the exact opposite. The more we learned about it, the more we appreciate. With these ones, we get to interpret and guess, and we really don't understand them, but we can try to in our own way. So that's what's kind of interesting about these pieces. So outsider artists are among the untrained. Another type of untrained artist is a folk artist, and they are part of an established tradition of style, theme, and craftsmanship. They have little training. So they differ from outsider artists because they have an established style that they're kind of hearkening back to some sort of tradition. And like enthusiasm and devotion to some sort of tradition. So folk art examples include quilting, hand embroidery, sculptures, furniture making, customizing cars. Basically anything made by regular people with little training that's done in some sort of traditional way. So we're going to take a look at some folk art. So this is a quilt made by Mary Wallace. It's called Peony, and it's appliqued and quilted cotton. It's 100 3/4 inch by 98 inches. And quilting is a flourishing form of folk art in the U.S., often practiced by women, and many women working together at one time on one design. And this is made with fabric overlays that the artist then stitched down. So that's what the applique means. The shapes of the flowers are solid chunks of fabric that were stitched down, cotton fabric. And this particular quilt shows the influence of Pennsylvania German pottery. So there's that tradition in there that makes this really a folk art. And the peonies in the design, which are the flowers, are they've been abstracted to these 6-point shapes. So they have been abstracted. So that's just one form of folk art. And that will kind of wrap up this particular video.